This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Taluki. And on today's episode, well, we're breaking it down. We're breaking down the 27-23 pathetic, absolutely pathetic loss to the Chicago Bears. And then later on, we're going to have a Lions legend in Cory Schlesinger, former Lions fullback for 12 seasons. He's going to join us later to talk about the season and kind of like his old playing days as well. So I think that's going to be a really interesting interview. But we're going to break this down. We're going to go with some positives and some negatives and a couple of pressing questions. One I have about our head coach, Matt Patricia, and the other one I have about our quarterback, Matthew Stafford. So it's definitely going to be an interesting show. Look, I've been watching Lions games for over a decade now, and I'm young. I'm in my early 20s, so I have not experienced the complete wrath, I guess, of people that maybe are a lot older than me. But I watch this football team religiously. I mean, I don't miss a game. I don't care if they're not playing for anything. I'm watching the game, and every season I get heightened anticipation of this is it. This is going to be the year. This is going to be the year, and it just makes me so upset when I see what happens in week one of a third-year regime of Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. I see us leading 23-6 and thinking that, wow, we're actually playing well. And then I see us give up 21 points to Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears offense, and I go, what happened? You know, it's funny because I was watching it with another Lions fan, and we go up 23-6, and it's about the middle of the third quarter, and I say to him, I said, why does this game feel eerily similar to the Arizona game last year where we tied 27-27? And he said, no, don't worry. Our offense is clicking. We'll be fine. And I don't know. For some reason in the back of my head, I said, this doesn't seem right to me. We're up this much. And by the way, ESPN had, at that point when Prater kicked the field goal to go up 23-6, 97% chance of winning the game. 97%. It just seemed, I don't know, something seemed really fishy to me. I said, well, what if our offense starts to stall, and what if Mitchell Trubisky heats up like teams have done in the past and beat us, or at least tie the game or something? And he kept saying, don't worry. But I don't know, in the back of my mind, I started worrying, and sure enough, it happened, and they imploded. And it made me very upset because we were watching the game and we had the windows open, and I was shouting a lot of things at the TV, and neighbors 10 houses down could probably hear me. But I get very, very into Lions games. I get very, very intense watching that TV screen. But I don't know, I just can't help it. I'm just a diehard fan, and I really, really get into games. I can't really explain it. We'll get to some more of those later. I wanted to go over a couple positives because, of course, every game has some sort of positives for the Lions. So first things first, I'm going to start off with Adrian Peterson. 14 carries, 93 yards. Didn't score, but I think Adrian ran the ball well, and I know most of his yards came on those couple plays, but those were plays that the Lions needed the most, especially on those drives when they scored. So I will give Adrian Peterson props. I mean, he was signed less than a week ago. He came in ready to go. 35-year-old running back. I don't know what else that says about Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift, because they need to get it going for sure, because they're going to be they need to be reliable. I'm calling this backfield the four horsemen. All right, we got Matthew Stafford, Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift. I've been calling them the four horsemen ever since last week, and I really want that to be true. I want them to be like the four horsemen of the old Notre Dame. So that definitely has to happen. But overall, Adrian, I thought, ran well. They were right on the broadcast, Jonathan Vilma. I don't know if anybody caught this, but he does his damage when there's a fullback in front of him. And there's a reason that Jason Kabinda, they needed that fullback because Nick Bawden went on the injured reserve. And I think for the most part, he did his damage when the fullback was in there. So definitely have to utilize that more often, especially if you want Adrian Peterson to be productive. Also, another positive, TJ Hawkinson, 5 receptions for 56 yards, and the lone passing touchdown from Matthew Stafford, and not as big of a debut like he had last season against the Cardinals, where he had 124 yards, I believe. However, it was nice to see the Lions utilizing a tight end, providing some mismatches. I saw some of those crossing routes on the other end of the field. I liked seeing that, and I really hope Darrell Bevell can use TJ more often this year. He definitely has to be a threat. And overall, I was satisfied. I just want a little bit more production out of him. I want more targets to him. He was, all 5 of his targets were receptions, yes. So I definitely want to see him perform. And also, I just to add to that, Danny Amendola stepped up. He made some big catches down the field. He got hit pretty hard a couple times too, but he was able to maintain possession. That's really nice to see from the old receiver. I think he's 35, just like Adrian Peterson. But these young guys have to perform. These young guys that they're banking on to perform, they need to step up, because right now it's just the older guys. It's just Adrian Peterson and Amendola stepped up, I thought. But they need the younger guys for sure. Also, I think another sort of unsung hero, at least on a couple of those Lions drives, was our new punter, Jack Fox. 4 punts. He averaged 49.3 yards an attempt. Earlier in the first half, I think he averaged 54. So he definitely was booming his punts. And punters, I've always said it before, punters can determine some football games, especially with the field position battle. I think Jack Fox had a really, really nice debut for the Lions at punter, replacing old Sam Martin, who's now with the Denver Broncos. All right, now it's time for the negatives, and my first one, I don't know, I just think Matthew Stafford. I do. He really underperformed. Everybody thought he's coming out. He's going to be this MVP season and all that, which I think Stafford still has great football left. But I was really disappointed. 24 of 42, 297 yards, the touchdown to TJ, and then he had that interception later in the fourth quarter. Look at that, 77.2 rating. That's bad. You can't. Plus, he was forcing throws. There was a lot of throws he was forcing and just missing his receivers. I don't know if that takes time, if he's timing routes, or he didn't have Kenny Golladay out there, so he had rookie Quintez Cephas. I don't know if that has anything to do with timing or anything, but we need to get that straight, because it's go time. 0-1 is not acceptable, and we need to keep the ship rolling. We need to get back on track, because this thing is going to be a dumpster fire if we start off 0-4 against 3 very good teams coming up: the Packers, the Cardinals, and then the Saints. So have to step up big time, and everybody needs to step up on this team. Next negative. Oh my goodness, the defensive miscues. What was going on? What was going on with these defensive miscues? Holding here, pass interference there. Jamie Collins, what is he doing? What is Jamie Collins doing in the second quarter? Look, I get it. I think it was a little bit of a rough ejection. That's, I don't know. That's kind of a questionable ejection from the game, but you don't hit a ref. You don't hit a ref. And, trying to show the headbutt and trying to see if they would call. But you just have to play smarter. This is a guy that's been in the league for years. You can't play like that. You can't play like that. You're supposed to be a leader of this defense. What are you doing? The team needs you. Where's the discipline, Matt Patricia? I thought this team was going to be more focused, more disciplined than ever before. Everybody was on the same page. DBs are down. You saw Trufant Coleman go down. Okuda's out. What do we need to do? Plus, the other thing, pressure. Where was the pressure? We got 1 sack on Mitch Trubisky, and that was actually a big one by Trey Flowers. Forced a fumble, too. But, oh my goodness. This defense, I thought, was supposed to be blitzing a lot more. It was supposed to get more pressure. None of that was evident today, especially against a lackluster Chicago Bears offensive line. Unbelievable. And the other negative I have, rest of the run game. Nobody showed up. Adrian Peterson was the only rusher that showed up. The second leading rusher, Matthew Stafford. And those were just on runs that nobody was open downfield, so he just took off and slid for the first down. That was it. Carry on, 7 attempts. 14 yards. Swift, 3 attempts, 8 yards. He did have his first NFL touchdown. Congratulations, young man. But I know the play everybody talks about is the drop in the end zone. And this is the thing. First of all, the Lions never should have been in that situation. I will admit that. Never should have been. But also, I kept telling the person I was watching the Lions game with, I said, do not go to rookies in this situation. When they were on that game-winning drive, I said, do not go to Cephas, do not go to Swift, because rookies are too vulnerable in these types of situations, especially in a year where they didn't have any chemistry or anything like that with the quarterback, with Stafford. It was really hard, to get workouts in and all that. I said, do not target rookies. And what do? They target a rookie, wide open, Swift. Fundamental football. Matt Patricia, you preach it with the Patriots. Fundamental football. You grab the ball, watch it come to you, and then tuck it. You have your eye on the ball the whole time. I don't blame Swift for this loss. It was tough. He's a rookie. I really, really hope he moves on. He needs to. We need him this year. But geez, everybody else, they need to really get their act together, these Lions, because that was a loss that never should have happened. And there's 3 really tough games the next 3 weeks. So I really don't want this to become a dumpster fire, but we'll see. And my other point I wanted to make, what's up with Matt Patricia's post-game press conferences? Michael Rothstein, the beat writer for the Lions on ESPN, he goes in and asks a question, a fair question. I thought, is this on coaching? Then Patricia responds and says, yeah, well, I have one of the greatest fourth quarter calls in the history of the Super Bowl. What? You're really going to mention that? That was 2015, Super Bowl 49 against the Seahawks. Okay, Malcolm Butler made a great play. Yes, you called that. I get it. That was a long time ago. You're not a defensive coordinator anymore. You are a head coach. Living way in the past. I mean, that was an ego right there. I mean, you just don't say that stuff. I'm giving him a chance. I'm not giving up. I'm not buying into that whole tank for Trevor Lawrence thing I've heard some people say. I'm not about that. I'm not about tanking. We finished strong. But seriously, I think this loss goes on Matt Patricia. He just I didn't think he had his guys ready. The discipline wasn't there. All those defensive penalties, those miscues, couldn't stop the run. Just gashing us up the middle. Unbelievable. Also, one final note, and I want people to kind of store this in their memory till we get to the end of the season, because I think it's a really interesting point. A few weeks ago, of course, Dan Orlovsky had mentioned via ESPN that if Stafford doesn't win here, a winner is going to pick him up. And I always kind of thought with those comments, I don't know. I think Stafford and his family are pretty loyal to the Lions and all that. But I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I think, who knows? What if it's true? What if it actually comes true? And especially after a performance like this, and just with this whole regime just backfiring, who knows? I just want people to stick that in the back of their mind until the end of the season with those comments that Orlovsky made. Maybe Matthew Stafford will be gone at the end of the season if this keeps up. They definitely have to play better all around, everybody. And who knows? Matthew might leave. He might say, I'm done. Obviously, I don't want to speculate, but it's just comments. I thought it was interesting. Just something to stick in the back of your mind until the end of the season. Look, I'm still in shock. I woke up this morning on a Monday, and it's just the same feeling every Monday since I was a kid. Waking up, having to go to school, online class, and just kind of thinking about it. What are we going to do? Why does this keep happening every week? Why does Matt Patricia have now 11 fourth quarter blown leads? I mean, geez, I don't know. I don't know what to think. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not. I'm just a very passionate Lions fan, and I support this team 100%. And I support whatever regime is in here, but sometimes enough is enough. And especially with now, and especially moving forward, I don't want to be negative here, but say the Lions go 0-4 to start things off. I think that's just a telltale sign that it's a dumpster fire and everybody needs to go. Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn, all the assistant coaches, everybody needs to go, because this cannot happen anymore. They just need different management. If this continues, I'm willing to give them a chance. I think they'll compete against the Packers next week. I really do. And I'll tell you why. I know Rodgers threw for 300-plus yards and 4 touchdowns against the Vikings and won that one 41-34. I get that. Yes, the Lions fans, I can get why some people might be scared. However, I think this is a week that the Lions settle down. They say, okay, let's regroup. Let's focus. Last week's behind us. We're going into this game, and we're going to compete. Because it seems like, at least in recent years, the Lions have seemed to have competed with the Packers in recent years. And especially like Marvin Jones, I know he's had tremendous games against the Packers, and Matthew Stafford has as well. I think they bounce back. But who knows? I mean, anything's possible in the NFL. But I think it'll be a lot closer than people expect. I still think Aaron Rodgers has a field day because the defensive backs just seemingly couldn't stop Trubisky at all, especially in that fourth quarter. But you never know. I mean, the Packers did give up 34 points to Minnesota. So especially if that offense gets clicking, if Kenny Golladay can come back strong next week after sitting out week 1, I think Stafford at least has another reliable receiver to use, and especially Adrian Peterson, if he can continue to be the bell cow, because right now it seems like he's the bell cow for this Lions rushing attack. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm excited for next week, Green Bay. And joining us now here on Open Mic Night is a Lions legend in fullback Cory Schlesinger, who played for the Lions from 1995 to 2006. Cory, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. It's really, really fun to have you on, an ex-Lions player, of course. But I really want to start with the beginning part of your career. You played for the Nebraska Cornhuskers back in the early part of the 1990s, and you won that national championship in 1994 under legendary coach Tom Osborne. So what was it like playing for such a legendary program in Nebraska and also for a very legendary head coach in Tom Osborne?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Well, I grew up in Nebraska, so the ultimate place to play was for the University of Nebraska. I was offered different scholarships throughout the country. It was kind of interesting because most of it was for linebacker. And then Nebraska, they kind of brought me in just as a player. They didn't really know what to do with me. And they decided, you know what, we're going to put you at fullback, which was kind of interesting because there was 11 fullbacks at the time. I was like, what in the world's going to happen here? So, but then over the time playing, I was just kept advancing forward and kept doing my job. I just kept practicing, kept working hard in the weight room just to get myself better to get to that position finally where I can actually start my junior year. And the University of Nebraska was a pretty important place for us, considering there's only one college football team in Nebraska, a big college football team. And that's kind of like their everything, that's all they have. So it's pretty important for the state of Nebraska and it's also important for a person coming from Nebraska to get a chance to play there. Coach Osborne was an incredible coach. He was there for many years before I was there. I believe he started in 1973 and I came in 1990. He had a very interesting coaching style because he was never a yeller. He was always very positive. He wasn't one to swear at anybody. He was very motivating in a way that you wanted to play for this guy. And it's kind of funny. Well, this is your job to play football. Well, no, you wanted to play for this guy and you wanted to do well. You were disappointing yourself if you did not succeed out in the field because you wanted to do it for him. And I think a lot of the players felt the same way. I know, especially talking to guys that got recruited by him, when he would come to the house, he would talk to them. They're like, I want to play for this guy because of just his character and how he talks to them and how he emphasizes getting an education. Granted, we want to have a good football program, but he wanted these players to get an education also. And that was really important for a lot of families. They wanted their sons to go there, not only to be in a good program with this good role model, but they also want their kids to have education also.
So then after your Nebraska career, you got drafted in the 6th round by the Lions here in 1995. So just talk about what were you feeling when you got the news that you were drafted by the Lions and just sort of those first couple weeks being in a whole different city?
Well, it was interesting because after my senior year, I basically prepared myself to go to work after football. I was training to test out. I did not get invited to the combine. I didn't go to any Senior Bowl games. But when the scouts came to Nebraska, I must have did a pretty good job because next thing you know, I'm flying out to the Raiders and Green Bay and the Lions and stuff like that. And they wanted to do more, wanted to talk to me more about their organization and, what they're expecting of me and stuff like that. So come draft day, this was back in the day where it was on the weekend only, Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday they would cut it off like fifth round. And I was in the 6th round. So they cut it off and I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't hear anything. Didn't really know what was going on. And then I finally got the call from the Lions and they said, you're going to be a Lion. So it was a very exciting time to be drafted in the 6th round by the Lions, knowing that they were trying to incorporate a fullback position into the offense, getting a block for one of the best running backs in the country. So it was a very exciting time. I don't think as soon as I got that call, my wife and I, we left the house and we're just like, oh my goodness, this is pretty important. Then we had to realize, wow, you're flying out next week to Detroit. So it was a lot of things happened pretty fast, and very glad that they gave me the opportunity to come to Detroit and play for them.
Of course, you mentioned it. One of the best running backs in the country you got to block for, that is Barry Sanders, the legendary Lion, arguably the greatest Lion in team history. So what was that feeling like when you were blocking for him in those couple seasons that he played when you were when you were a Lion?
Well, it was difficult. It's kind of interesting because not a lot of people know this, but my rookie year I was starting and I was blocking for him. And basically by the 9th week, they kind of like, well, Cory, we're not going to really use you anymore because he's not used to your blocking style and he's not following you that much. So we're just going to eliminate it because, he still can do pretty good on his own, which was obviously we went to the playoffs that year too. So, they tried it. They kept me there. I was a really good special teamer. So I was able to stay on the team even without a fullback position. So as a special teamer, when they said go hit the wedge, back when they had wedges too, that's what I did. I went down there and I hit the wedge as hard as I could to prove to them that I could be on this team in this organization. And I think I did a pretty good job with it. So it was a lot of fun getting to block for one of the best running backs in the country. It was also fun just to get a chance to watch him and be part of it, be in the offense with him in the huddle. So it was a good time back then.
Later on in your career, once Barry left, you became more of like a threat in the passing game, with like Marty Morningway, when he became the head coach, more of a pass-oriented team. So just talk about what was the adjustment like for you being, more of that special teams guy, the hard-nosed fullback blocker, to now more of a weapon being used in the passing game?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. When I got brought into the Lions, the offense coordinator said, listen, you're not here to run the ball. You're not here to catch the ball. You're here to block for number 20. And then when finally Barry left, they basically said, listen, we think you can do this pretty well. Let's see what you look like in a 2-point stance. And so I'm like, all right, let's do it. So next I'm getting handoffs and I'm in the running passing routes. And, when I first come in here, I came from Nebraska where they don't throw the ball to the fullbacks. And they're like saying, well, Cory can't catch a cold because this is not his type of offense, stuff like that. But during the offseason, I would train. I would bring my buddies out to the football field, and I actually have them throw me footballs. So, I got to give big thanks for Brian Bustede out there and the Scott Cooter for helping me to succeed in the NFL career by going out there and just throwing balls at me and getting used to catching the ball. Because, they're kind of true. I've never had a lot of experience catching the ball at Nebraska except for my freshman year. But so do a lot of hard work, a lot of practice, and just confidence in myself and the quarterback. Got to the point where, the West Coast offense came into town, and that's a great offense for a fullback. Not only do I get a block, I get to run the ball, plus get to catch the ball a lot. And actually, when Marty Morningwood came into town, that season I actually had 60 receptions, which was pretty incredible. I think it was like the 3rd leading receiver on that team. And it was a lot of fun. So it was a good time. I wish, we could have won more games, though, but at the time, it was a good position for me, and I was able to succeed and really bring out the fullback position in a three part threat there.
As you were saying just now, obviously, a lot of tough times there, not a whole lot of wins. People think of it when the Matt Millen era and a bunch of coaching changes and all that. Just it's sort of like a negative time in Lions history. But you were considered one of the leaders of that locker room. Just talk about how you were able to just get the guys at least motivated just to go out there and play on Sundays, even with all the front office stuff going on.
It's kind of funny because I'm not really the rah-rah kind of guy. I kind of do it by example. I go out to practice, and I know linebackers hated it because I would go out there and I would still hit them in practice. I'm going to practice like I play in the game. And that was kind of the thing I was taught at the University of Nebraska was play like it's the Saturday game because, you don't want to practice half speed. You don't want to go out there and just go through the motions. I want to go out there and pretend that this is an actual game situation and do it the way I would do it during the game. So a lot of it was just through the way I practiced, the way I played, the way I trained. And I think a lot of guys kind of saw it and followed it. Hopefully they did. I guess not everybody because a record doesn't really show it. But that was the best thing for me. And that's what worked out. And that's why I was able to sustain and have a career like I did.
Of course, you played for 12 seasons for the Lions, 1995 to 2006. Not many guys last over 10 years in the league. I think the league average is around 3 or 4 years.
So 3 years, yeah.
3 years, yeah, exactly. So just talk about what does it take to play in the NFL for that long with all the physical toll and all that? Like, what do you do? Is it something with the keeping your body in shape or diet or, anything like that? What happens with?
Well, I got this guy right here, which is pretty heavy, but a lot of it's luck. I've had players come in, great players, 3rd-round draft picks, and they blow their knee out the first preseason game. They rehab, come all the way back, they blow their other knee out the third game of the season. So it's just the luck of the draw sometimes, and I think I had a lot of luck with me. But then again, the way I trained for the season, I prepared myself for the hits. For everything I did was not – the way I trained during the offseason was not – I didn't run marathon runs. I didn't run a mile, because what did that do for my position? I'm usually going 10 yards. I'm usually hitting somebody by then. So that's the way I trained. I trained explosive. I trained with agility and a lot of movement, because that's football. That's how I was trained, and that's the guys. I actually did a lot of this training in Nebraska. That's what they taught me, and that's how they got me in shape. And when I'd come back for training camp, these guys would be like, "What have you been doing, man?" And I'm like, "This is how I trained to get ready for the season." But like I said, it is a lot of luck, and I always tell people, hit them first before they hit you, because it hurts a lot less. So I love, that's pretty good saying.
You look at today's NFL, and it seems like not even like half the teams in the NFL even have a fullback, on their roster. They just use, if they want to use one, and they use like a tight end or something like that. So talk about how much has the fullback position changed in today's NFL than, say, when you played?
Well, you don't see them in the I formation anymore. I mean, you see them. It's hard to watch, and it's hard to play that way too when you're in one series every quarter or every third series. It's just you're not in the mode of the game. And I feel bad for some of these guys, because it's just they're not getting a chance to play. And you got to be in there sweating with the linebackers, because the linebackers have been playing. They're ready to go. And when you're in there once every few plays, it's tough to get in the game mode. But there's not a lot of true fullbacks really in college football anymore. So it's kind of hard to bring in fullbacks into the NFL now, because there are no true ones. There's some hybrids out there. There's the tight ends that they try to make into fullbacks. And I know the Lions have got a linebacker they're trying to convert into a fullback. And I know we tried to, back in '94, they tried to convert a linebacker into a fullback too. It's a mentality too. Tight ends, they're pretty tall. And, the low man wins. If you got a linebacker who's 5'11", 6 foot tall, and they're 6'2", it's hard to get their pads down to get underneath them. I know Urlacher, he just hated playing against me, because he was 6'2", I'm 6 foot tall, and I was always able to get my pads underneath him. I played so low, and that just drove him crazy. So, but, I love playing against great linebackers like that. And they got a big name, and it's always fun to hit those guys in the mouth, sometimes in the hole there. So especially when they start cutting me, because I'm taking them out of the hole. So that's always a good feeling. Was
Urlacher your favorite player to block, I guess, in your career?
It's kind of funny, because the bigger the name they have, I guess it's more excited for me to go out there and hit these guys. Why? Because the camera's always on them. And if I get a good block on these guys, they're more likely to replay that, because they don't get, the hits like they're supposed to. I think some players might get a little bit nervous. Oh my goodness, I got this linebacker over here. I don't want to. I'm like, forget that. I want to hit him even harder, because he does have such a high name. I love playing against Urlacher. He was a great athlete. He was a great linebacker. He motivated that team. Ray Lewis was another good one out there. Even played against some of the old guys, Bill Romanowski, and it was fun. Talk about a tough guy, man. He was a tough guy out there. So Jack Del Rio was another tough guy out there. So I got to play with a lot of different varieties in 12 years. It's kind of funny, because my rookie year, Kirkland from the Steelers was 300 pounds. The linebackers are huge. And then as the season went on, or not the season, but my career went on, the linebackers got smaller, but they were a lot faster. And it's interesting, because they're all about cover too. They're about getting back and covering the receivers back there. So it was interesting to go through these guys and play against some of these great linebackers. And the best thing too was hearing stories back from them saying, man, I knew when we had to play you guys that I better buckle up, because I know you're going to come here and hit me in the mouth every once in a while. And that's probably the best feeling to have sometimes, is knowing that these guys did not look forward to playing against me, because I'm going to go out there and hurt them a little bit. So that's always a good feeling.
So earlier you mentioned that the Lions are making a linebacker into a fullback, and that is Jason Kabinda, of course, replacing the injured Nick Bowden. One of the few teams in the NFL that really still has a fullback on their roster. But talk about What do you think the adjustment level will be for Jason Kabinda adjusting from that linebacker defense going over to offense?
Well, I wonder, it's kind of interesting. What's his history? Was he a running back in high school? He might have maybe played a little bit of a fullback in college too. So that seems like fullbacks and linebackers are, I don't know, we kind of work together, I guess. So he might have a little bit of experience. I don't know. I haven't really talked to him about it or anything. I don't really know his history, but it's kind of funny. You got basketball players that play NFL football, never played college football. So it's interesting. Guys can do these things. It just depends on what he wants to do. We had a coach that always says, it's about desire and want to. If you want to do this and not be afraid to go hit that linebacker, because that's what we're doing most of the time, he should be a good for this offense. If he's going to go in there and kind of tiptoe and be a little timid, well, that's not going to be very good. You have to want to go out there and do these things. It'll be interesting to see how his hands are, if he's at good receiving hands, if they're going to throw him the ball or not. But it'll be interesting to see what he does out there, and I'm pretty excited to see, especially coming up this Sunday, if they're going to compete and how well they're going to do.
Talk about the team this season. I know a lot of fans just want to know, when is that year that the Lions can make that Super Bowl run? Just talk about maybe, some keys. When do you think the Lions can have a shot at making the Super Bowl? What are the steps maybe to getting there one day?
You are asking the $1 million question. If I knew that, I would have did this a long time ago while I was playing, so I could be at the Super Bowl and have my ring on my finger. But they made a lot of different selections this year. They moved some players around. I think they're a little bit more comfortable with the coaching staff now. They kind of know what he wants and expecting out of them. From what I heard, he's pretty no nonsense. This is how we're going to do things, and hopefully this year they follow that lead and they get things done. I don't have any predictions on these guys because you just never know. We have Matt Stafford's back, which is good. There's always injuries. We don't know what's going to happen with this. But I think this organization is pretty tough, and I think we're going to go out there this Sunday, and hopefully we're going to pull off a strong finish that really start off the season in a positive note. And not only just a win, but I want to go out there and show the NFL that we're a pretty dominant team, and we're going to go out there and finish things. And we'll just have to wait and see what's happening.
I just want to ask you one last question here before we close out. Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn, they were brought in a couple years ago with the Patriot way, I guess. And I'm sure the NFL can be like a copycat league a lot. Coaches copying each other with scheme and all that. And a lot of people think that the Detroit Patriot kind of thing. Just talk about, is this system, is it right for the Lions, with the toughness and all that involved, but is this the right thing to do with the Lions going forward? Well,
I think so. Without being in the locker room or going to practices and see how they're doing things, Belichick he's a heck of a winning coach. My goodness, I don't know how to explain it, how he does it every single year. I mean, every year they go to the Super Bowl, they lose half their team anyway because everybody wants to bring him in. So he's still able to produce and get results, and that's what we're aiming for. And I think we can hopefully get that in here. And I've always been positive with the staff that they have here, the GMs and the head coaches they bring in here. Like I said, I don't have a chance to really work them in the locker room like that, so I really don't know what's going on there. But I think they're in the right direction. I think the Fords are in the right direction by bringing them in here because they do come from winning organizations. We're just waiting for that win. It's coming one of these days.
I know.
And we'll just see what happens this Sunday. Then we could come back and do this again. I'll say, well, you know what? This is what we need to work on here. We need to get in stronger defense, strong goal line. We need to score in the red zone or whatever we need to do. But hopefully we come out with a positive, and I think we will. So I'm pretty excited to see this Sunday.
I'm hoping for that one day too, Cory, as a long-time Lions supporter here. Of course, we want to thank Cory Schlesinger for coming on 12 seasons in the Honolulu blue and silver at the fullback position. Cory, thank you so much for joining us again.
You bet. Thank you.
I want to thank Cory Schlesinger for coming on again. Well, that was a really good interview. I really enjoyed that. I really love NFL history and learning about the past like that. And I think Cory did an excellent job at that. It was really cool to hear his stories about Nebraska back in his day with Tom Osborne, and especially fullback, because not many teams use a fullback. The Lions do with Jason Kabinda. So definitely interesting perspective there from Cory Schlesinger. But thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Look, guys, I'm really positive about the Lions. I always have been. There's just something about them where I just always just love to just keep watching, keep watching every Sunday. And I really, really hope they turn it on against Green Bay next week. But I don't know. Some things, it's just enough's enough. I know Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia have been trying to build a culture, and I respect that. I do. But there's just times where in-game decisions, and then you start to question, when is enough enough? When will the plug be pulled? I'm looking forward to next week, just seeing if the Lions can bounce back. Give us any hope of anything happening this season. 15 more games. Just at the NFL, they always say just take it one game at a time. And for DeAndre Swift, just let that one go. Time to move on. And because this is what the NFL is like. You just take one game at a time every week. If you have a bad game, move on. So, and that's for everybody. Everybody's got to do that. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what this team could do, because I think this team has potential. I really do, especially offensively with those weapons with TJ and DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson, if they can stay healthy. And now new signing Adrian Peterson and Quintez Cephas getting in the mix once he gets in sync with Matthew Stafford. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not giving up hope. I never have, but some things just really, really upset me about this team. So thanks again, folks, for tuning in, and thanks to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network for airing this. And we hope you tune in next week only on Open Mic Night.